Hey everybody, welcome to Randomly Selected, powered by the Silver Room. My name is Mario. We appreciate your patronage. Please don't forget about it. Subscribe, and tell your friends to check us out. Today's show, we feature a true, iconic human being, Mary Datcher. The name may not sound familiar to you now, but if you're in the Chicago area or Dallas or New York, you definitely know who Mary Datcher is. We talked to her about her origin story, how she got into the music business, her running around at GCI here in Chicago and all those things. We talk about the mentor program she was in high school through Junior Achievement and how that inspired her to become a program director. Mary Datcher is important, y'all. Please stay tuned. This is going to be a good one. I say that all the time, right? But they're always good ones. It's Mary Datcher on Randomly Selected.
Well, I think that when you say coming in and really working from the beginning, you and I come from that baby stage of hip hop when it was starting to really grow legs, especially in Chicago. We're not talking about New York where, they were about 12, 15 years ahead of us. We're talking about, late 80s, early 90s when people were getting their fix through college radio or underground B-boy, B-girl events, or even going as far as possibly, going outside and throwing some linoleum down and doing their thing at Logan Square.
That's right.
So I was fortunate enough to be in between the house music era and growing into my love of hip hop and finding myself kind of squeezed in between because at the time, house heads weren't into hip hop like that.
Right.
They were like, oh my God, like, how dare you? You're messing with the purity of house music. But it was some similarities when you think about it because, you had a lot of the preppies, right?
Wow, I haven't heard that word in a long time.
Yeah, a lot of the preppies who would, wear their K-Swiss and they Jabot jeans and they, turn up their little polo collars and the girls would rock their Coach purses and all of this stuff.
Equestrian boots.
Yeah. And
the riding boots.
And not realize that it was a form of hip hop.
Yeah.
Like they were rocking that in New York in the same manner, but they were loving hip hop and loving, anything that came out new between Dougie Fresh or Slick Rick or Roxanne Shante or the Zulu Nation, all of that still kind of intertwined.
Yeah.
And it was a certain type of elitist vibe that went on between the house music scene and the hip hop scene. Now, even if I want to break it down, you had various forms of hip hop. So on the South Side, you still had that, popping your polo collar, Jabot, K-Swiss wearing crews. And then on the West Side, you had a lot more ghetto house, a lot more, not into the disco flavor of Little Louis, but was more into the, footwork, more of, the sluggos, all of that.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and then they considered it, oh, well, that's just West Side. That's that gutter house. Well, at the end of the day, it's still house. Mm-hmm. But what it did was it transformed a different kind of group and element that felt like, well, all this is commercialized anyway. So we're going to go this other route and really tap into our love for hip hop. And so at the time when I started in a program called Junior Achievement.
Yeah.
And Junior Achievement, I started in my sophomore year, went to Prosser Vocational High School. Shout out to Prosser.
Right on.
On the Northwest Side, because I'm a native of Austin.
Okay, well, so, shout out to Austin.
Yeah, West Side.
Yes.
And so, between that and the suburbs, my mom lived in the suburbs. My dad was a business owner on the West Side, and a lot of my family migrated from down south to the West Side. So when her and my dad separated, she went to the burbs. My dad stayed on the West Side, running his businesses and managing his properties. And so it was that best of both worlds in terms of a high quality education that I received in the burbs, but also spending time with my dad on the West Side. And eventually when I decided to attend high school, I decided to spend more time with my dad and ended up coming to a Chicago public school. Now, in the 8th grade, you gotta also pick out your high school. So I was late. I was late to the game. I could have went to Whitney Young,
Right.
but it was just too late for enrollment. So they said, "Hey, we'll send you over to Prosser." And I said, "Okay, well, I don't know if it's good or not, but we're gonna work it out." And that was my first entry into a very diverse world because I was always one of two or the only black student. But I also understood the street side because that's what I was around on the weekends and holiday breaks, was understanding my schoolroom was Madison,
Right.
between Pulaski and Central.
Right.
You asked me anything about Madison Street during the 70s, 80s, and the early 90s, I would tell you, who was your delivery cab stand? Well, who had the best soul food?
Right.
What was the black-owned cleaners?
Right.
All that. That was my landscape. And as I came up in high school, I noticed there was a void of the same privileges that I received in the suburbs that I lacked in the city. And part of that was mentoring programs. In junior achievement, I joined a club right up the street from my house that was sponsored by Illinois Bell.
Oh, yeah.
Formerly
Yeah.
Illinois Bell, now AT&T, right?
Right.
And it really helped students understand the entrepreneurial side of forming their own company, assigning different roles.
Why is the name of that program escaping me? It was the because they had it at CVS too. They had it.
Yes.
It was. You know what? In the post edit, I will tell people what the name of that program was.
See, they had them all around in different schools,
Right?
And they had them throughout various neighborhoods that they can find a corporate company to sponsor and bring their employees from that company to work with these students. I can't even tell you what the product was. All I knew was I was, part of this program that gave me life. It provided an avenue for me to speak well, to be around other professionals in various fields, going out to various dinners and galas, traveling to national conferences at Indiana University, and meeting other like-minded kids from various communities. And so one summer, I had already been in for like a year. Going into my junior year, I decided to go to Jones Commercial. And before I entered Jones, over that summer, they had asked us, hey, WGCI is hosting a junior achievement program. Who wants to go over there to the radio station and talk to the GM? And so most of us raised our hands and we were like, oh yeah, we'll go. And see, junior achievement at the time was on Madison and Display. And so we hopped on a 20.
That's right.
Came down there to 6 North Madison, where
6 North Michigan.
No. Oh, yeah, 6 North
6
Michigan.
North Michigan. Yeah,
right there, but it was Madison.
Right.
In Michigan.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for that.
That's right.
And so
I hung out there a little bit.
Yeah, so we hopped on. I knew we hopped on that 20 and made it down there and sat around in the conference room. We met Marv Dyson and the VP comptroller, Daryl Green at the time, who initiated the program and said, hey, we need to bring some students in here. And what they did was they donated a few hours of airtime of their AM dial, 1390. So we would come on right after then Operation Push, before they became Rainbow Push.
Right.
So after Reverend Jesse Jackson and all of them got off the air, Junior Achievement would take over the airwaves.
I absolutely remember that.
Yes.
Wow.
And it was one of the best experiences I could have had. I mean, we did it for maybe 2 years, 2.5 years. And throughout that whole process, I fell in love with programming. I fell in love with the formula of creating a format, whether it be from selling ads to marketing to sitting down with the program director and the music director, dealing with the DJs on air. I fell in love with all of that, and I knew right then, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so in that, I became very close to the actual staff, the working staff at WGCI, and became their intern and got into an internship program. My mentor at the time was Barbara Prieto, young Mexican woman who really was probably the youngest programmer in the business at the time. And she took me under her wing And I would tell her what was hot in the streets because I would sit there in her office and listen to everything, all the B-sides. I discovered NWA. We played a lot of hip-hop on JAAM. And that was what we call it, JAAM 1390. And some really cool people came through that program. Sean Long, he was, part of the program, and Taco Bops was part of the program. I can go on. Yeah. And we really had an opportunity to see up front what Black excellence looked like and what Black excellence didn't look like. And I was so aggressive at the time that I still have a letter that Marv Dyson wrote to me telling me to slow down.
I can hear him saying it.
Slow down. You're moving too fast, and you need to focus on your education, because it was all about you need to go to college. But here I was watching record promoters from all different labels, because at the time, Music Mondays was it.
That's right.
All the record company reps from the regional side to the national side would come in town, and they would sit there in the lobby while they wait their turn to present any new music to the program director or the music director to get them to play it or add it. And we're talking about back in 88, 89, it would be sometimes 25, 30 people in the lobby waiting their turn. And I had an opportunity to meet so many great, iconic people and names in the business who went on to run labels. Yeah. But even the ones that didn't but stayed here, they were like jewels to me. They were like huge role models, and they would take me under their wing and say, hey, you can go to college if you want, but you don't need college to do what we do. What you need is passion, on-the-job experience, building your relationships, and understanding how to duck at times and roll. Right. And that's when I said, okay, this is what I want to do. And I bypassed the opportunities to, go to college on a full 4-year ride, and decided to go to junior college because this is where I wanted to be. And I felt, okay, I had about 2.5 years in. I didn't want to break that up by stepping back and going, let me go to school and then have to come back and do this all over again. And so my mom gave me an alternative. She's like, look, you're going to have to either go to college or get a job. But you're not going to just lay up in this house.
Yeah, right. The speech of all speeches.
Yeah, with dreams of joy. Right. And this is not bringing in a great deal of money. And so my father, when I graduated from high school, I graduated from Jones Commercial, Falcons. Hey, Falcons.
Here we go.
And which is now Jones College Preparatory.
Yes, it is. And a really nice building downtown.
Very nice building. So I went ahead from that point on and decided to go to Harold Washington College so I can appease my parents. And it was so interesting because I had a conversation with a friend whose son did the same thing, went there for 3 weeks and dropped out.
It happened.
But the kid is talented. And I said, you know what? I did the same thing because I had already been putting my name out there. When I tell you I was doing club promotions while in high school, I was Hot Mix 5 intern.
Wow.
Kenny, Jim, and Jason, I told him, he didn't remember this. And I said, yo, Kenny, you gave me my first beeper and my first set of business cards. He was like, what? I said, yes, you did.
Wow.
I would run around and work the clubs circuit, like dropping off records of all the Hot Mix 5's latest releases. And I would go to AKAs, Coconuts, CODs, you name it, and was not 21. But because I carried myself in such a mature manner, you didn't see me hopping folks' laps or drinking.
It was all business.
It was very business
that's how I met you.
Yeah.
The street team. You've heard that phrase if you haven't Googled it. The street team was the thing back in the day. And we talked to Mary about the street team and what type of impact that had on music during the 90s. Man, the 90s. Also, when did the who does she think she is come about? Once Mary started really moving up the chain, you used to hear that quite a bit. Mary Datcher on Randomly Selected.
The street team was really, at the time I started, it became the actual lingo. Because prior to that, it was club promotions, right?
Right.
And so let me tell you a funny story real quick. So I knew all the promoters. I wanted to intern for a label. And I gave them my pitch. I said, hey, I'm doing all this stuff for all the house DJs. I know all the clubs. I know all the club managers. I know how to go in. Give me your records, Mercury Records, Motown, MCA, Epic, Columbia. Give me your records, and I can go and work them for you.
Right.
So most of them say, that's what record pools are for. We don't need anyone that can work these records for us in person. They turned me mostly down. The only other person that understood and was doing something similar was Kathy Carroll. And I got to give her a shout out because Kathy at the time worked full-time at Illinois Bell, but she was helping Chuck Arrington, who was the MCA Midwest Regional. And MCA, for all those that are new to this, MCA actually was the label that handled everything that Universal has now.
That's right.
So all that, all the music that you hear from New Edition to BBD, I can go on. All of that, Patti LaBelle, all that came from MCA. MCA was huge. And so she and I were the only ones that would actually go out to the clubs. And we would see each other. And we came, like, oh, who's this young girl? So I said, you know what? Forget that. Don't worry about that. Record pools, DJs pay a fee. And a lot of DJs I knew weren't members of record pools because they weren't willing to pay that monthly fee to get records. And a lot of records they got was trash anyway. So I went ahead, after GCI wouldn't give me a full-time job, I said, well, let me see if I can intern. I went to, I won't tell his name because he's not dead, but I asked him, hey, let me be your intern. Well, you can be my intern, but it's going to be free. What you mean it's going to be free? I've been working for GCI for 2.5, 3 years already. I know this, I know that. It's different. Label, the record company game is different than a radio game. See, just because they coincide don't mean that they're the same. So then I went to, and I will say her name, went to Pat Edwards, who at the time was the Midwest Regional for Motown Records. And throw a shout out to Pat, because Pat is now the entertainment director for Crawford Broadcasting.
Oh, wow.
So
Hey, Pat.
Yeah, so I said, Pat, I really want to intern. She's like, well, you know what, baby? I don't have any positions right now, but I suggest that, and she gave me a couple recommendations. One of the recommendations happened to be Karen Ross, who was the Midwest project manager for BMG. BMG's distribution company for RCA and Jive Records and all these other labels underneath it. She said, I'm going to pay you $50 a week if you can make it out to Oak Brook Terrace, where we're at, and you can intern for me. Now, $50, I was like, okay, that's better than nothing.
Yeah.
So I ended up going out there every week, and I would not only help her on the retail record side of getting the music out to various record stores, but at night I would take those same records and I would work the clubs. You're talking about my first hip hop record was Tribe Called Quest, Bonita Applebum.
I think that I remember you. I think we were at. That must have been Red Dog.
Yeah.
And I think it was the Rose night. Shame Love Tempo, my man. And because every time I saw again, I would see you at every place I went. You were there. I'm like, how is she doing this? But, and I was always fascinated by the fact that the cats, the brothers that were, I mean, and I could do the name thing, but the guys were all like, talk to Mary, get a record for Mary. What's hot, Mary? It's one thing to see a man doing it. It's another thing to see a responsible person, man or woman, doing it. And you were just so responsible. And it was like, if you didn't co-sign on it, nobody really fucked with it.
Yeah, but you know what? The thing is, let me tell you where the who does she think she is started coming into play.
Can't say I didn't hear that before.
So once I did all that, established a name for myself, got hired by Universal Distribution to deal with the record stores. I was maybe 20, going on 21. Universal Distribution hired me to handle the Midwest. And I handled dealing with the record stores, the retail distribution, the marketing. But that love for the clubs was still in my blood. So ended up, I had gotten to know the head of hip hop promotions at MCA, Brute Bailey. And Brute Bailey was really a great mentor because he helped me discipline. He said, look, and I would tell this to my little niece, early bird catches the worm. This man worked at the Universal Record Campus 2 hours before us, LA time. And like clockwork, he would call me at 7:30 a.m. my time while he was at the office. So that's 5:30 a.m. He's literally at his desk. And I'm like, why are you calling me at this time? I just got in from the clubs. Right. He was like, the early bird catches the worm. And there'll be times where I would have to have my report due. And he's like, I want this due at this time and no minute later. So I became disciplined at writing out my weekly reports. Came a call. Had been working for him. And when I tell you, when I worked for MCA, I worked young black teenagers, tap the bottle and twist the cap. Wow. I worked Rex and Effect, Rump Shaker. That was my record. But prior to that, I worked BBD, Ralph Tresvant, worked Another Bad Creation. I worked New Edition.
I remember
Can't Stand the Rain.
All this.
That particular one.
All of that.
Yeah. When I tell you, so when people like, yo, blah, 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 and I'm like, I worked that record. They're like, what do you mean? So Brute and Wes Johnson, who was the head of radio promotions at Def Jam at the time, said, look, Wes, and then look, Brute, we are forming our own promotions team at Def Jam. Do you have any recommendations for somebody out of Chicago? He's like, I have the perfect person for you. She's young, she's bright. So under Wes, his national was Ardenia Brown, who was Doc Brown's sister. I don't know if you remember Doc Brown, who was big on the concert promotion side. And Ardenia, before she joined Def Jam, she was doing promotions at Jam Productions. So they recommended me, flew me out to New York, never been to New York. At the News Cafe, that's when I met Wes and Russell for the first time. Wow. And they interviewed me and they said, we want you. But guess what? We don't want you for Chicago. We want you for Dallas. What? You going to move me to Dallas? I don't know nobody in Dallas. Because at the time, they wanted Quentin to come in. Chili Q.
Yeah.
From HBK.
Shout out to my man.
Q. So, Q was cocky, still is.
Very much so. That's my boy.
And so he was like, yeah, I'm gonna do Chicago, right? And I'm like, why can't I do Chicago? I actually work records. So I had to make a real decision, and I leaned on Dr. Groove. I don't know if you know Jeffrey Watts.
Of course, absolutely.
Dr. Groove was a good friend of mine, and I was like, I don't know if I want to go. I don't know anybody down in Dallas. And he said, look, go. This is a good opportunity for you. And they didn't pay me much, but it was an opportunity. And I went down there, and I worked the entire Southwest region from Louisiana to Oklahoma to Texas to Arkansas. That was my region. But it was on a shoestring budget because at the time, Def Jam was crazy cheap. And Def Jam had a really, really rough edge to themselves. This was the time when Leor Cohen was transitioning over to run the label under the RAL brand, Rush Associated Labels. And Russell was transitioning to do more of his properties like Fet Farm and Def Comedy Jam. And so our staff had to cover everything. We had to cover not only the label side, but if any of the Def Comedy comedians came through our region, we had to take care of them. We had to make sure that we took care of college. We had to cover our retail. We did everything. And one of the reasons why they thought that I would be a good fit for the Southwest region was because they did not have a strong distribution relationship with Sony. And I had a strong distribution background. And that's one of the main reasons why they brought me in. And I developed a great relationship with Sony down there. But I was worn out. I was tired. I was broke. And at the time, I missed my boyfriend, and I just wanted to come home.
Yeah.
And so I finally put in my resignation, and I'm skipping over a lot of stuff. But I put in my resignation, came back home, was in between knowing, okay, what am I going to do? And happened to call George Daniels.
I was about to ask you about George.
And George had saw me a few months prior at a music convention down in New Orleans. And he would always see me at these different conferences. And he was like, yo, kid, I need you on my team. I don't know what you're going to do, but you bring me a proposal. So I wrote up a cool little proposal for him of some of the things that he needs to maybe focus on.
With George's music room?
Yeah. What, things he needs to follow up on. You got water?
Somewhere. I think.
We're going to take a 30-second break.
I do have water.
You do?
You can have mine.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay.
We will chop this out. This is better than the last interview. I'm saying that out loud.
So, George's Music Room, right? George's Music Room, West Side, brought him a proposal. And he said, okay, kid, you're hired. I only pay cash.
That sounds so much like George. Oh, my God.
And I'm going to need you to be my eyes and ears, and you're going to be my administrative assistant. And this is really interesting because I come from working at Def Jam, working with all these artists, and I come home humbly because in my spirit, I did not want to work for them anymore. And I was willing to sacrifice that in order to have peace of mind. And I hope people that are listening who is in between different stages of their life understand what I'm saying. Is that sometimes you have to sacrifice in order to see the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
And I took a salary hit because I saw something at George's that fulfilled what I needed to be filled. And that was the acceptance of my creativity, the willingness to learn a different side of the business. See, I always try to convince retailers to carry our records, to, move us up the charts, but never understood what they dealt with in trying to move the product to the consumer and how they would do that and how they connected to the neighborhood, to the community. Record stores was a vital part of people dreaming something that they didn't think would be tangible to them, especially in underserved communities. And George's Music Room played a very important part with that, with the in-stores that we would produce, with the co-op agreements that we would do with the labels and with the other distributors, with formulating a great relationship with Casper and Design to make these beautiful murals.
Yes.
We really took it to the next level. And with my marketing skills and a way of writing a lot of the proposals, I just basically brought George's ideas to life and structured them, but they were mostly George's ideas.
He's a brilliant man.
Yeah, I just basically made sure they were in writing, they were formatted beautifully, and made sure that it was more of a structure where the interpretation of what he wanted would be accepted by the labels and the other companies. And in doing that, I learned a lot of how he shifted and moved around, and I learned a lot from the staff that was there, Paul, Caleb, Cookie, may she rest in peace, who were instrumental in really moving music because they understood the consumer. So if somebody came in going, yo, I want to get that, that Chronic, the new Chronic, then Paul may say, okay, my man, you like that Chronic? I'm going to go ahead and let you listen to this Too Short. Oh, you like that Too Short? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let you listen to this 3-6 Mafia. Oh, you like that? Okay, well then I'm gonna go ahead and get you some Pusha T. Like, he was always selling. So when you came in initially wanted 1 or 2 CDs, you would come out with 10.
Right.
at a markup, mind you.
Right.
Because while everyone else was selling their CDs at $13.99, George was selling his at $18.99, and they were buying them, you know? So I learned the art of real community connection by working at George's Music Room. And once I got back home and working for him, that's when everyone else started dropping in going, yo, you back in Chicago? Rap-A-Lot was the first label to step to me. I need you to work for me to do some street promotions. So I revitalized back my street marketing company, On the Street Promotions, because I started that when I was 19.
The Wu-Tang story. What you waiting on? That's it. The Wu-Tang story is randomly selected, powered by the Silver Room.
So Cream was blowing up on the underground, especially on the college side. And at the time, you know, they had the deal with Loud Records, Steve Rifkin.
Right.
But he had a distribution deal with RCA Records. So I was RCA Records street team rep for Chicago. And they had hit me and said, hey, we got this group. We need you to go ahead and lay out an itinerary for them. And, you know, they're a little rough around the edges, but you can handle it. So shout out to Charm Warren Celestine, because she was part of making sure that I worked all of her RCA projects at the time when she was the national. And I think her husband, Leroy, was also helping on that end. So they come to Chicago. I lay out an itinerary for them. And part of my itinerary, I always included Wicker Park. I always included Lit X. I always included, you know, that whole North Avenue, Milwaukee, Damon
this
corner.
Is before Double Door. When Double Door was a pool hall.
Yeah, exactly.
Before it became a concert venue. And then it became a Yeti, but that's later.
Yes. And so, and I think at the time, what was it? Alcatraz? I think Domingo was doing Alcatraz.
Yeah.
And so I go ahead, get them, and they are not in the best mood.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
So Wu-Tang Clan, Mary, it comes to another level at Lit X. Peace, Kendall. Peace, Howie. Peace, Tina. It's me, it's Kendall, and it's Tina. Mary comes down. She go. I can hear them coming across the street. Mary comes in the store. She's like, hey, what's up, y'all? Introduce you to the Wu-Tang. Now, heads knew who they were. Cream was hot. It was not kind of hot. It was hot. It was big in the hip-hop world. It was like big, and it was like a very intriguing story about all these brothers from one place. They all knew each other growing up.
Yeah.
We knew the backstory a little bit. Didn't know the edge part. They come into the store. I told this to Raekwon, and he goes, I remember everything. I remember all of it. They come into the store, and Mary's like, all right, you know, I think you stepped out or went upstairs and talked to some of them outside or whatever happened. Method Man grabs, he gets ready to get on the phone. He goes, hey, man, can I use your phone for a second? Kendall's like, yeah, go ahead, brother. It's cool. He gets on the phone, and he starts going in on somebody because their stipend money was gone,
Steve
right?
Rifkin.
And it's like, yo, we in this motherfucker. We ain't got no money. We hungry, son. What the fuck? But he is letting him have it.
Yes.
And he very gently hangs up the phone. And so we're all kind of just looking around like, damn. And then he tried, either it was Meth or RZA or somebody tried
No, it was
to
ODB.
It was ODB. He tries to change the music because Kendall was listening to reggae because that's what we listened to. And Kendall was like, all right, that's it. Y'all done used my phone. Now you trying to change my music. I'll see y'all later on. Have a good day. And we kicked the Wu-Tang Clan out of Lit X.
See, well, you kicked them out of Lit X. We brought them up to Triple.
And they went right upstairs to Triple X. Oh, my goodness.
So, you know, it was really their first.
That was their first time in Chicago,
their
right?
first time not only in Chicago, but traveling in general. Like, we talking about guys from the projects who still had their families and their baby mamas and, you know, and it was almost around the holiday time.
It sure was.
Because it wasn't all of them. Let me say this. It was the ones who broke out with solo acts that decided to roll with me. The rest of them stayed at the hotel.
Oh, wow.
Because they were so upset with Rifkin, and they felt like, yo, I ain't doing this shit, right?
Right.
So ODB and I became real cool.
That was that dude.
Yeah, he was my guy. He wanted to sit up front with me. Method was in the back, high, sleeping, but he was coming anyway.
Right.
Raekwon was there as well.
Right.
And so they wanted to be the ones, because they, and I look at that as a great sign. Mm-hmm. Because the ones that said, we're going to do this promo run, we're not going to sit back at the hotel and get high, were the ones that had successful solo projects.
Absolutely.
Let me say that.
Absolutely.
Even though Method was not a great participator, he was there. He was like, I'm high in the back, but I'm here.
He was very present. And they were all, the other thing I remember about that day, they were all really nice. I mean,
very
they weren't
nice.
like...
No, and they weren't crazy
I can point out one
disrespectful.
person that wasn't in that trip, but another one that was really not friendly.
Yeah, they weren't... one thing, they were upset. We're talking about $35 a day.
Yeah, they were hot about that stipend money.
And they said, look, we're not getting paid. It was the first one. You're not going to get paid anyway.
Right.
We're not getting paid for this. We're getting $35. So how are we supposed to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
I can almost hear the conversation.
On a $35 budget.
Yeah.
Then, Meth was like, yo, I got my girl, got my kids, and I'm on the road and I'm not earning. See? Mm-hmm. Some of them were still earners. Mm-hmm. And they really were, in that struggle mode. They were trying to grasp the concept of this is what's going to lead you to make real money. So I had to be that calming voice for them. And, me and ODB was cool. And he's like, man, you remind me of my girl because you just so tough. You just so straightforward and honest. And I said, okay. Because he was the one that was really wild now.
Yeah.
And, but I calmed him down and it ended up, I did a listening promo meet and greet at this billiards pool hall on Webster. No, it was on Sheffield.
Oh, yeah.
Near Lincoln.
Yeah.
And I think I invited like some of the retailers, Loom, a lot of them, you guys, and it was an opportunity for them to eat. And they were so grateful because they said, we don't have to spend our stipend on dinner.
Yeah.
You're feeding us. Yeah. And I thought that was really weird because I'm like, what do you mean? But then when I put two and two together, okay, this is what they're learning. And from artists that are listening to me right now, when you're out there on the road, and if it's an opportunity to be at an event where there is food, there is drinks and hors d'oeuvres, take advantage of that a little bit because that does save you money. And we try to provide that a lot when we have artists on the road because we knew that a lot of times their per diem was saved for other things that matter. So, but on the flip side, it was recoupable.
I asked how much of that time and those lessons that she learned are in use now by her in her current career path. Mary talks about similarities and differences in the current state of the music business and how she works that into her practice. She also talks about being a super TT to a wonderful, wonderful nieces, as a matter of fact, and how that translates to her being the mentor that she is now. We end with what's on the menu for Mary Datcher and some great closing thoughts. It's randomly selected, powered by the Silver Room.
Oh, I take a lot of it. I mean, even to what I do now, even dealing with on the political side,
which blows my mind still that you are that involved.
Yeah, on the political side, when you're dealing with public officials, they're artists. They are artists. The game of music is very much parallel to politics.
Yeah.
Lobbyists are independent record promoters. They are.
Yeah, they are. They absolutely are.
They come to the representatives or staffers of the public official or the public official themselves and work with their priorities on behalf of their client. What can you do for them? What can you do for us? I'll write it up for you. You let us know what's needed, blah, 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 blah. The lobbyists get their check from their client, which if it's an independent record promoter, they get their check from their label, who is their client, to work their project. So a lot of times the problem is that there are restrictions and guidelines that are put in place ethically for public officials, and that's why you have so many of them going to jail.
Because they forget ethics once they get in.
Yeah, but
if they knew it at all.
Yeah, but imagine if ethics was really applied to the music game.
And real quick, is that the same with radio? Because I remember hanging out with Rick Party. Shout out to my man's Rick. And doing stuff at GCI, doing character voices and whatnot. Did you even know that I was doing that?
No, I didn't.
Remember Vinny Spinacci, the Black Italian? That was me.
I had no idea that was
you.
absolutely
me.
Wow.
That was me. That was me. Jesse De La Pena would be like, man, I heard that. Was that you doing that? I'm like, yeah. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
So even being up there in that environment and listening to how Marv and then Elroy and how they programmed the station and how they talk to the jocks and how they talk to the people who work there, I know it's different now.
Oh, it's totally different.
It's an amazingly different time musically and just with the philosophy of how records and stuff work. Yeah. Because there aren't records anymore.
There aren't records, but still the game is the same. See, when they say, oh, it's a young man, it's a young woman's game, yes, for talent. But when you look at who's still signing checks and making those decisions, they are some of the same people that I came up with. But now they're on a higher level. And so you can't kind of dismiss and go, well, it's the new breed. You got to really, one thing I think with Generation X is that we always kind of respected the generation before us, the baby boomers, because we were taught that level of respect for our elders, and to learn from that, even though they didn't want to, share, we quietly took it without making them feel embarrassed. Now it's more of an embarrassment. We're going to shame you. We're going to guilt you. We're going to do everything we can to take what is yours without really working for it, but because we feel it's your time to sit your ass down. And that's where the general disconnect comes into play. But I truly believe in mentorship because I was mentored. But I was mentored from people that would throw you in the deep end and say, swim! Right. You'd be like flapping around like, okay, my head is above the water. I think I'm going to make it to the edge. Boom! And you made it. And that's the difference.
Real quick. And I appreciate you being with us today. This has been a masterclass, no doubt. I was under the impression, she's going to get a kick out of this, that was your daughter, but you're an auntie mom.
Oh, I'm an auntie mom. I'm a super TT.
I see her face when I see you guys at stuff, and she is like absorbing all of it. Are you, how cognizant do you think she is of what you've done, and if not cognizant of what you've done, do you see yourself in her?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have 2 other older adult nieces, 3 nephews. She's 9 now. She's the youngest one. She's the one that literally is attached to my hip, and my sister's okay with it. But she's the one that I saw a lot of myself in. Awkwardly shy yet creative, and she's part of this group called the Happiness Club that sings and dances and stuff, and she loves it. And so I had 2 weeks ago they were doing an event up north, and it was raining. It was a Saturday. It was like a tsunami, and so we're under the tent, and she's just like, I don't like this. This is too wet, and people started leaving. And so she's like, people are leaving. I said, so I get into my promoter mode. I said, Simone, when I work with artists, sometimes there might be 5 people in the crowd, but you really perform like there's 50 people because those 5 people are going to tell 10 people and 10 people are going to tell 20. And I went on and I said, so you got to do your best no matter if it's not that many people in the crowd. And she just looked at me like,
like
really,
word,
really, is this what you're trying to tell me? And I had got a kick out of it because I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this to my niece.
Right.
Like, get your ass up there and perform.
Right. Get going. She's a doll. I enjoy seeing her whenever you guys are around.
Thank you.
She can come to anything we do. I saw her at Block Party, I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, she was with the Happiness Club.
I'm like, look at you. I see you.
Yeah.
What's on the menu for you?
What's on the menu? literally starting next year, I'm starting to get right back into the swing of things of Global Mixed Media Group, going into a new venture with a business partner of mine that I can't really expose yet.
Yeah.
But I've always loved media. I always loved writing. I always loved creating, teaching people the importance of understanding the business of music and film. And that's what Global Mixed Music and Film Forum has done. And I had to take a hiatus because of my current, position in working for a member of Congress. So, ethically, we cannot, do that.
Right.
But I look forward to planning it out for next year because it's truly a void.
Look
I
here,
can feel it.
You do any radio stuff, you find me. I need a job.
Well, you know what? I would love to buy a radio station.
You let
Wouldn't
me
that
know
be
when
dope?
you do. You gonna end up doing it. I ain't worried about
Hey,
you.
no doubt.
You know,
no
end up
doubt.
doing. I appreciate you. I always have. You've always been somebody that I've looked at as when I see you, I'm like, okay, there's some good shit's about to go down because Mary don't push no junk. It's not like drugs, but it's very much like drugs.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, see her coming. She got something. What you doing? I'm going to so-and-so. I'll be at the party later. But I have always said that you are one of the most important people in the Chicago music world because without you having the wherewithal to say, I want to have control over how people view our music.
Absolutely.
Nobody else was doing that.
No.
And I am I'm on behalf of everybody super grateful for you.
Thank
And
you.
every time I see you, man, I'm like, okay, I'm like, here we go. What's going on? What we doing?
Man, you got to love your city, but you got to also think beyond your city.
Yeah.
And you got to represent your city in a way that people will reflect and go, yo, they represent Chi-Town. They represent Chicago very well.
You're the reason why. You're a lot of the reason why, man.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being on Randomly Selected.
Thank you for having me.
Finally.
We'll share some more stories.
Oh, we could have did 6 parts. Thank you.
No problem.
We want to thank Mary Datcher for her time and her contribution to Chicago's music scene. So glad that this happened, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. On the next Randomly Selected, Danny Boy will join us. Should be interesting. Hope you catch us then. And until then, be well, stay safe, peace.